Okay, so let's talk about one requirement. We have a one requirement where all the customers like customer A and customer B, and for example the customer XYZ or customer ABC are sending some data into a one particular email. Okay, just think about that. This is a Outlook email where all these customers are sending one data in a Excel file of format. Okay, so we need to create an application which will be take the data from this Excel file, which will be download the data from Excel files from this graph from Outlook and stored somewhere. Now when where we have to store, we have to store this data into database table. Okay, just think about that. We are getting the data from the Excel files from Outlook, okay, from this email, and we are storing that into a one database table. Okay, this is actually the requirement which we want to achieve. What we will do, we will create one application. For example, if you are working with the Java, then we will create one Spring Boot application which will be read the data from Outlook email. For this purpose, we will use the Graph API which is provided by the Microsoft. Okay, we will using the Graph API retrieve the data and store into the database table. Okay, now just think about the scenario where we are retrieving the data from this table. Okay, while you are performing the select query, then it will be a fetch from it needs to be a scan all the database records. Okay, and just think about that. We have a requirement that we don't need a data which is a less than of 10 days. Okay, we have received the 10 days before data, so that we have a 10 days before data and we don't need that data into at UI side. What could we do? So we can do think about that. We are creating the table and storing all the data into that table. Okay, while retrieving it is scanning all the records. Okay, and we have one requirement that we don't need a 10 days before data. So in this situation, what could be the solution? We can think about to delete all those data which is a 10 days old. Okay, how we will implement this? We will create a one scheduler in our application. If you are using a Spring Boot application, just create one scheduler into the Spring Boot which will be run at every night 12 o'clock, which will be delete all the records from the table which is less than of 10 days. Okay, which is older than 10 days, which will be actually deleted from our database. Okay, now let's tweak this requirement. We have a requirement again that we don't need to delete this 10 days records from the database, because but we don't need this data at UI side, but we have to preserve this older data or preserve this historical data somewhere in the database. Okay, so just think about that. If you store this data into the same table, which is our transaction table, and while you are performing the select query, then it needs to be a scan all the records, which will be take more time and which will be dealing with our performance issue. Okay, it will take more time and we will lose our performance at that time. Okay, so how we could resolve this performance issue, how we will get the response in a very less time. How? Okay, we need to do a query optimization. Okay, but no, we will not do any query optimization. What we will do, whatever the data we have 10 days before, okay, we don't need that data at a UI side, right? What we will do, we will move that data from our transaction table into our backup table. We will create a one table which is a look like a same as our transaction table, and we will move that data from our transaction table to our backup table. What we will do, we will again create, for example, we will create one scheduler. Okay, and which will be execute at 12 o'clock every day at night. It will be just take the data from transaction table and it will transfer those data into our backup table. Okay, so what could be the advantage of this? Whenever you will fire a select query, then it will be scan only those records, all the records. But the advantage is that now you are having a very less amount of data in your transaction table, so just because of that your performance will be improved. Okay, whenever you have a requirement like that, just think about your database side as well, that do we need to put this data into the same table, or do we need to put this, or do we need to transfer this data, this older data or historical data. If you don't need it a UI site, you can transfer this data from transaction table to backup table. Okay, yeah, thank you.